Okay, let's dive right into this explainer and tackle what is, let's be honest, probably the most overwhelming part of any ELT or linguistics thesis. I'm talking about Chapter 2. If you're currently staring at a mountain of research papers, completely drowning in open PDF tabs, and just wondering how on earth they're all going to come together, you are in exactly the right place. Today, we're demystifying the review of literature, and we're going to turn what often feels like a chaotic reading assignment into a highly structured, internationally recognized blueprint.
To help you transform hundreds of papers into a coherent chapter, we've mapped out a really clear agenda based on 2026 international standards. We're going to cover the big mistake everyone makes, redefine the chapter's actual purpose, walk through the ultimate blueprint, learn how to truly synthesize, pinpoint your research gap, and finally wrap up with a pre-submission checklist.
Let's kick things off with Section 1, the big literature review mistake. So when you're staring at that massive pile of research, what's the absolute most common error that instantly signals an amateur thesis to an international examiner? It's a trap that is so easy to fall into, especially when you're just trying to prove that you actually did all the reading.
The biggest mistake is creating a laundry list of summaries instead of doing a true comparative synthesis. You know the drill. Study A found this, Study B found that, Study C found something else entirely. That is merely an annotated bibliography. It's just descriptive reporting. What you want instead is synthesized analysis. You want to be able to say, studies across contexts consistently report this trend, however, evidence is a bit mixed regarding this other variable. That second approach, that proves you can actually integrate information, not just parrot it back.
Moving right along to Section 2, redefining Chapter 2. If it's not a list of summaries, what exactly is it? Well, the formal definition is that a literature review is a systematic, critical, and thematic analysis of published scholarly work relevant to a research problem. The crucial takeaway here is that this chapter is the scholarly backbone of your thesis. If Chapter 1 proves your problem exists, Chapter 2 proves you deeply understand the existing body of knowledge, the methodologies being used, the contradictions, and exactly what limitations are holding the field back.
All right, Section 3, the ultimate chapter blueprint. Let's see how these concepts actually build into a structure examiners recognize.
A comprehensive thesis organizes Chapter 2 incredibly logically. Think of it exactly like a funnel. You start super broad at Step 1 with your theoretical foundations. These are the big established theories underpinning your field, things like sociocultural theory or generative grammar. Then in Step 2, you narrow it down to conceptual foundations, explaining how specific concepts in your study relate to one another, say learner autonomy and digital literacy. Step 3 is the empirical review, usually the largest chunk, where you review global, national, and local studies. And finally, the tip of the funnel, Step 4, the research gap. This forms the absolute clear justification for your specific study.
And keep in mind this vital number, 2026. For thesis submitted in 2026 and beyond, international examiners are expecting highly transparent, systematic search practices. You really can't just stumble upon articles anymore. You've got to log the exact databases you searched, like Scopus or ERIC, the exact keywords you used, and your inclusion and exclusion criteria. Maintaining this kind of search log doesn't just drastically strengthen the credibility of your review, it literally saves you from the total nightmare of trying to remember how you found that one perfect paper 6 months down the line.
Next up, Section 4, synthesize, don't summarize. We know what it is conceptually, but let's look at how to actually execute it on the page. The real secret to synthesis is organizing your literature by theme. You have to fight the temptation to just arrange studies chronologically on a timeline. Take speaking skills, for example. Instead of ordering by publication year, you sort the literature into meaningful thematic buckets. Speaking anxiety, fluency development, pronunciation, peer interaction, and AI-supported practice. Within each of these themes, you're comparing the findings of different researchers rather than just summarizing their individual papers in total isolation.
Think of writing your paragraphs like braiding these different threads of research together. You don't dedicate one whole paragraph to one single paper. Instead, your topic sentence introduces the overarching theme. Then you weave in evidence from multiple studies, evaluating why different methodologies might produce different findings. Finally, your concluding sentence ties it all off and links naturally to the next thread. That is how you create a beautifully flowing scholarly narrative. Which brings us to Section 5, finding your research gap. This is what all that critical engagement has been leading up to.
Your review absolutely must culminate in a well-supported, evidence-based gap statement. It can't just be a speculative guess. There's actually a pretty solid menu of common gaps you can identify. Maybe you've found a contextual gap where a phenomenon hasn't been studied in your specific educational setting. Or perhaps a population gap, where a certain learner group is totally under-researched. There are also methodological, theoretical, temporal, and practical gaps. By explicitly naming and proving your gap based on your thematic analysis, you are perfectly setting the stage for your own research.
All right, final stretch. Section 6, the submission checklist.
You've done the reading, you've written the synthesis, found the gap. Before you actually hand in that draft, let's run through a quick resolution checklist. Ask yourself, have I organized by themes rather than by author? Have I discussed both strengths and limitations? Meaning, have I evaluated instead of just summarized? Is my research gap clearly supported by the literature? Does my conceptual framework arise naturally from this review? And finally, did I use a proper academic objective voice? Meaning, am I using phrases like the evidence suggests rather than conversational claims like everyone knows? Check those off, and you're golden.
Now, you might also be wondering about length. Typical page counts range from about 20 to 35 pages for an MA dissertation, moving up to 35 to 50 for an MPhil, and all the way up to 100+ pages for a PhD thesis. But I want to stress something incredibly important here. Length alone does not equal quality. Hitting a specific page count is way less important than the depth of your critical evaluation, your synthesis, and your ability to pull together high-impact scholarship.
Ultimately, I think this quote captures the true essence of Chapter 2 perfectly. A literature review should tell the scholarly story of the field. By the end of your chapter, your reader should be able to clearly see how ideas, methods, and evidence have evolved over time. They need to understand the plot twists, the debates, and all the unresolved tensions in your discipline.
Because if you can tell that scholarly story effectively, your studying naturally becomes the very next logical step in that progression. You've now got the blueprint, the standards, and the strategies for true synthesis. So take a look at the literature you're gathering right now, identify those gaps, and ask yourself, exactly how will your thesis advance the story?